Estados Unidos.
All my friends know the low rider. The low rider is a little higher. Low rider drives a little slower. Low rider is a real goer. Hey. Low rider knows every street, yeah. Low rider is the one to meet, yeah. Low rider don't use no gas now. Low rider don't drive too fast. Take a little trip, take a little trip, take a little trip and see. Take a little trip, take a little trip, take a little trip with me.
Coming through.
Hello.
Hey, Mr. Chong, how you doing?
Good, real good. How are you guys?
Just it's just us hanging out. Wasn't sure what kind of background would be appropriate.
Oh, you got a choice.
Well, I could always go with something like this if it'll behave. I figured that was a little too cliche.
Is there such a thing as cliche these days?
You tell me what's new.
I don't think so. I don't think so. What's this woke? I like that woke thing. It just woke is like, I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, I kind of understand what the racists are saying. You know, they always try to find labels for things. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't understand it, give it a name.
Yeah. Well, what they do when you label something, you appeal to the mind, the human mind that wants to put everything in order. You know, like if there's 1, 2, 3, you got to have 1 and then 2 and then 3. You can't have 1, 3, 2. You know.
Yeah.
And so people get kind of engaged, so to speak, with details, so they can avoid the true meaning of whatever it is they're looking at. You know. Kind of cool. So what's new? What's new on the podcast front?
The big thing is you. big big news among my fans.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Oh man, YouTube seems to be the new direction. I've only been doing this now for a couple of months. I've been podcasting now for a couple of years, but
Yeah.
I just brought it into the metaverse, I guess you'd say, with YouTube, and people are having something to look at. They
Well,
engage
there's no
better.
end to the way we communicate now. It's changed everything. You got people that were just collecting money because they were in the way. Now everybody has to get out of the way because you're not needed. Cracks me up, like the sitcoms I was watching. I watch 2.5 Men.
Mhm.
Everybody Loves Raymond, and Third Rock from the Sun. Third Rock from the Sun is the best sitcom to watch when you're really stoned, because all they did with that show was bring acid and into the world. They're all from this different planet, but the planet really was the LSD world.
Mm.
Oh, I love it. I love
didn't make
that
that
show.
connection. It's a great show. Yeah, but I guess
Oh, I love it. I love it. And the acting, oh my God, it's so incredible. The technique they use.
Yeah.
Old vaudeville. Like I've been kind of studying biographies of everybody. Because I guess because I'm getting old, and my memory plays tricks. The memory plays tricks, especially if you're smoking a lot of dope. Your memory really plays tricks on you, because when you get high, you get stuck in the moment. Well, the moment could be so different from one moment to another. Like I barely drive now, because just my wife is a better driver. And I love riding, but every once in a while I have to drive. and it becomes a challenge. Because I see what happens when you get older. You don't have things to do automatically. Like when you're younger, there's things that you have to live your life. Take the kids to school, pick up the wife, pick up this, fix that, lift this, carry that. When you get older, all that stuff disappears. And pretty soon all you have to do is just make sure that you put on the socks before your shoes, that kind of thing.
Wow, I look forward to that. We I don't know. I grew up with you guys, Tommy. I grew up watching you guys, and it's interesting to see that now your impact is affecting not only my generation, but my children's generation and my grandchildren's generation are going to be impacted by comedy. And well, you and Cheech, what y'all have done is, wow, this is, you had to forgive me, man. This is surreal for me.
Well, again, I watched the Dean Martin story, and man, I thought I knew everything about those guys, Martin and Lewis, because they were my Cheech and Chong when I was growing up, and I just loved those guys to death, man. I mean, they were so funny, and Jerry was so crazy, and so I watched their documentary on Dino, and it was a lot of parallels to Cheech and Chong. you know, because Dean and Jerry were together 10 years. And Cheech and Chong, basically, we were together 10 years.
Really?
Yeah. And then we made our split, you know. And I didn't want to split. And I don't think Jerry didn't want to split either. But both Cheech and Dino, they had other things, you know, in mind, you know, like Dean wanted to be a serious actor, or, you know, as much as he could do anything, you know, he could sing, he could do everything, you know, and he was a leading man. He turned out to be a real handsome leading man kind of guy.
Yeah.
And Jerry was this comic genius. But when I started shooting, when I started doing movies, I really followed Jerry's, you know, what he sort of blazed the trail, because he directed, you know, he directed the comedy and everything. You know, you never knew what those guys were going to do, and so Jerry really got technical. You know, he was the first to use video assist. It was video assist back in the day. Now it's just pure video. You know, we don't use film anymore.
Right.
But back when I was shooting movies, we used film, and I used video assist to help me so I could direct. I could see what I did. And one of the great things about video assist and being in the movie is that, you know, directors, you know, we're kind of like, I guess, when you're, well, what's a good thing? When you're directing yourself, you don't have to try alternative cuts or scenes. You know, you get a feeling. You look at it, you feel it. We got it. We nailed it. You know. Mm-hmm. And because it's very elusive, that comedic scene, you know, mm-hmm. Everything it depends on what you're fixated on, you know, as a director. And with me, it was always on the comedy, you know, mm-hmm. Making sure that comedy worked and everything else, you know, and you know, and that's what Jerry was all about too. And then toward the end of his career, he started getting a little nitpicky, you know. He started going off on a weird trip, which was great, except it just gave Dean nothing to do. You know, he was like standing there waiting for Jerry to do all this stuff. Anyway, I love biographies. I just love seeing the real story, because the connection I see with all the biographies, like Dick Van Dyke or Robert Mitchum. Robert Mitchum, man, wow! Oh, you got to check out his story. He was in a Georgia chain gang when he was like 16 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because back in the day, you know, there was no homeless. They were called vagrants, you know, or you know, and they were arrested. If you couldn't show a job, you got arrested. And then you got sentenced to the chain gang. They made sure you had a job, you know, and you get arrested and sentenced for loitering. Can you imagine that? Nowadays, loitering. No. But that's, you know, because back in the day, you figure out it was a lot worse than what it is now. And so you can imagine homeless was just a way of life. Like the natives of the country, you know, they were basically homeless, you know, lived in shelters, you know, and yeah, so just checking out what used to be, and then you compare it to what we have now, you know, it's pretty exciting.
It's an exciting time to live. Out of curiosity, my wife wanted me to ask you a question. So when did you think marijuana would be legal in the United States?
When?
Yeah.
When do you think it will be, or what's that?
Well, yeah. When do you think it will be like nationwide?
I I kind of see it like, you see, what's keeping everything, what slowed down everything, the legalization part, was that, now this is just my observation, this is what my theory is, that the government's known all along that the good things about marijuana, they've seen, that it was medicine. It's been it was medicine for thousands of years, and no one even gave a thought of it being illegal. It's mentioned in the Bible, called canna, and it's mentioned many, many times. And the Chinese have always known it was a herb that should be treated as medicine, because there's records of the Chinese 3,000, 5,000 years ago, where they used marijuana for women with menstrual problems, because, back in the day, China had the most advanced civilization on Earth. And they were the ones that, they come up with acupuncture, they came up with all sorts of holistic ways to heal. And the pot was one of them. Now, the American way of life, really has roots in alcohol. And the reason was alcohol, back in the old days, you had plagues. You talk about our pandemic, they had the Black Plague, they had all sorts of plagues, that were just sweeping the civilized places, and a lot of it was done from unhealthy water. They never had the healthy water supply, or the sewers, in the city, were just alleys. That's what alleys were used for, to dump all the garbage,
Right.
just on the street or in the water, in the rivers or the streams or anything. And so the Chinese, thanks to the emperors, because what the emperors did back in the day, they would pay the doctors to keep them healthy. And but if they got sick, they not only didn't pay the doctors, but if they never got cured, they would kill the doctors. Like, if the doctors never come up with a proper proper thing. And see, that's where I think bloodletting started coming up with it. They were looking for some, here, he's got too much blood in him. Let's take some blood out of him, there, he looks better now, that kind of thing, just to keep their ass alive. Well, what happened when the Puritans in America, decided that alcohol was killing everybody, it was ruining so many things, homes and families. Like, it's still today, you still got an alcohol problem that's an industry, in the rehab industry, the 12-step program.
Yeah.
So what happens when they tried to make marijuana illegal, in America, they found out that India and all these other countries, that had been growing pot since the beginning of time, they had an industry going. And so what America did, they went around the globe and used money to pay people to make hash and marijuana illegal. They did that in Nepal, they did that with India, and what they did, they dropped money. For instance, just a minute, I got it. Can't talk. And so as a result, we went into these treaties with countries around the world for them to eradicate their marijuana crops, because they were big crops. And I know this firsthand, because I went to an island in Marianas, I guess, somewhere near Guam. It was a little island called Palau. Now, Palau is a very interesting place because it was during the war. You know, the Japanese had it for a while, and there's all sorts of war wrecks on that island itself. You know, convoys with Japanese trucks all blown up, but they left the way they are because they're war memorials. And so you go to the island of Palau, it's really, really interesting. And but what the Palauans did, you know, because they're ancient tribe of people, they grew two crops. One for the Americans to eradicate.
Okay.
They got paid $1 million to eradicate the crop. And so they to this day, they would eradicate the marijuana crop, get their $1 million, and then grow another crop for them to use.
Right.
So they got that, they got it going. So they get their pot. And I'm quite sure when they eradicate the pot, it's called probably harvesting. You know what I'm saying? They probably burned the fields because, you know, people, you know, in government like that, because you can make so much money legally, you know, without the threat of going to jail, that people will abide by whatever contracts they sign, you know, and that's what's going around the world. You know, you got that same problem like in India, Pakistan, all these places that America had treaties with these guys that they were supposed to grow, you know, they're supposed to eradicate their marijuana crops for the money. And so when they clean that up, and I'm not sure when that'll be, but the reason I think it's not legal now is because the Democrats are using it as a ace in the hole, you know. You know, they're holding it back. And so when the other side makes a move, they've always got this, well, we can legalize it and that'll get us more points and everything else. But the whole point of making marijuana illegal was to give the alcohol cops a job. So they weren't just out of a job when the prohibition ended, you know. Now they can go after the pot guys, you know, because you know, there's a faction in our society that wants to have like a police state, you know, where a dictator would rule, you know. Well, like Trump tried his best, you know, to be a dictator, but this guy has a hard time being a sex pervert. He can't even get that right. You know. I love it. I love it. And what really cracks me up about Trump, he really is. To me, he's the comedian of the decade.
Yeah.
You know, he is. He's done more for comedy than any other president I can think of, because he's the real deal. He really is stupid. And I love the way the Democrats are keeping him. They're propping him up, man. If he died, they would have to prop him up somehow to keep because he's destroying everything that comes in his way. Whatever gets in his way, he destroys it. Because see, that's what lies do. That's why, you know, free speech is good right up until you yell fire in a crowded theater. Because that's the kind of lie that will be dangerous. You see, and there's a lot of lies that, you know, they're, you know, legally against. You can't do it. You can't, you know, say, you know, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You know, it's definitely against the law, and that's really what Trump's been doing and getting away with. You know, but he's getting away with. What he's getting away with is he's got enough. He's not blatant enough that he's overwhelmed by truth. He's blatant enough that he gets enough money from these people to make him attractive, to greedy and what do you call those people? Ones with no soul. The evil.
Narcissists.
Yeah, they're just evil, and really, when it comes down to it, man, we're here in this world. There's a great song out now by Alan Jackson. The older I get, you got to hear that, man.
Oh,
it's
okay.
the best song. God, the older I get, the more I think. We're only here for a minute. Better live it while you're in it, because it's gone in a blink. I mean, that says everything about life. You're only in it for a minute, so you better enjoy it, because it's gone in a blink. And that's so true. That is so true. But when it's gone, it's just gone for this one session that we're here. We're coming back, and we're coming back because we are immortal creatures. We've always been here. We'll always be here. This one, I'm a lot of things, but I'm a comedian, and I do a lot of things, but it's not me that's doing it. I've been chosen by the higher power to do what I'm doing, and I accept it, would gladly accept, because I was blessed real young. My earliest memories was, I never really had the mother protection,
Okay.
and so I was taken, separated from my mother. Might as well say it, baby, when I was a baby.
Okay.
And I never really saw my mom and dad together until I was 6, 7 years old. I was in a home and like an orphanage, which was incredible. I really enjoyed it, because I didn't know any better.
Right.
So instead of having I had an older brother that protected me, but I didn't even know him in the home. I saw him, and I didn't know him because I came from a hospital. I came into the home, and because I had pleurisy, so I wasn't that, robust. And so when I got to the home, and it was before school, I was still 4 or 5 years old in there somewhere. And then I was in the home for a year. So I never had that. So I learned to sort of get next to the big guy. There's always a kid in the home, and he was, and all the little kids would hang around because he would keep the other kids from being bullies,
Yeah.
and he would keep the order. And so that was my life. I kind of grew up, and then I learned real early that if you make people laugh and smile, they won't hurt you, or they won't steal from you, or if they do, they'll include you. That's pretty, so my attitude was, and the reason I go into this now is that, my own kids, they were raised way differently than me, but in a way that I thought was good for them. I'm married to a very beautiful and very intelligent, very grounded lady that Shelby, that she's been my partner forever, and she really allows me to be the poet and the what do you call it, seer, the wise.
Sure. Yeah, I got one
Yeah,
of those. I got one of
yeah.
those.
You
Makes
got
all the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blessing. We're
Yeah.
blessed, because I know, see, from experience, I know how prayer works.
Mhm.
And I've been a student of that. I've been studying that basically all my life.
Okay.
Because I used to go to Sunday school because I loved the stories.
Mhm.
And I loved everything about it. I loved talking about God, and I loved hearing about God.
Mhm.
It would really I would, like you go to funerals or, or go to memorials and that, I,
Mhm.
I love them. I love it because I love watching people when they acknowledge the higher power
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
in a loving, beautiful manner.
Yeah.
It just feels so comforting, you know.
Mhm.
It just because what happens, this world obviously is not going to stop for anybody.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
just keeps plowing through the universe and turning I mean, I was like watching California. I watched it. We went through the worst drought in history, and guess what? Now we're in the biggest snowfall in history. People are snowed in the mountains. They can't get out of the mountains. These are the same people that were wondering what happened to their lake. It disappeared. And now they're buried under feet of snow. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm so amazed at the world we live in. Oh my goodness. And and then as we progress, especially in my life, it just keeps getting better,
Oh, that's
And
that's encouraging.
yeah, when I do cameos, you see, it's
Mhm.
up to you. It's up to you. You can look, the glass half full or the glass half empty. It's all
Yeah.
up to you. But what you have to do, this is what I figured out. What you have to do is monitor your intake of substances,
Okay.
because people I've been studying, growing up when my mom and dad finally, got us a house and we finally had a home, my dad was basically a child of the 40s and 30s, 20s, 30s.
Mhm.
And he developed a cigarette habit, you know, but it looked so cool. When he smoked a cigarette, man, it looked so cool. He had so much fun with it.
Mhm.
And so then as soon as I could start smoking, man, I thought, wow, man, that made you a man. If you were smoking a cigarette, then all of a sudden you're growing up. And so it took me a while to get past that, but I was never good at it because I'd been in the hospital. So I never really got to like cigarettes. And then when I became a musician, I would light a cigarette just out of habit. And then
Mhm.
at the end of my guitar, and then my
Right.
guitar, all these burn marks,
Mhm.
where I left the cigarettes smoldering in there. And then one day I was driving to Seattle, and I realized, if I use marijuana, I don't need a cigarette. Whenever I felt like a smoke, I would light up a joint. And, and next thing I know, I'm free of tobacco. And thank God, because I would have been checked. My dad left. My dad did he got 80 years old, I think. My mother never. She only got to be. She never got to 70. She was in her late 60s when she passed. But she only had one lung, so it was. She had they took one lung out for TB at
Okay.
that time. But yeah, yeah, and then when I was like I said, in the home, you got friends with the big guy, and then when I was in Army Cadets, it was kind of the same thing, you know. The big guys, you know, they would keep the peace around you.
Mhm.
And then I started playing music. Well, that changed my life. when other people, you know, especially singers, learned that I could play guitar,
Mhm.
I became a backup guitar player for a Native American singer who became an Elvis impersonator when Elvis came out. And so we had a lot of gigs, you know, it was the girls screaming because it was what a phenomenal, man. And really that changed my life. You know, when I learned how to dance. I learned how to Lindy Hop uh, because I just had a urge to do it. I had to do it, and so I would go off by myself and go to the clubs and learn how to dance.
Mhm.
And by doing that, I learned how to. I started dance with the good dancers, which were inevitably a black girl, you know. And
Yeah.
so my first wife, and she was is a beautiful black lady that
Yeah.
still lives in LA. And it was the dance and the music that got me going. And then we started a rhythm and blues band, and next thing you know, we got, long story short, we got discovered by Motown and taken to Detroit. Went to Detroit and made history and
Yeah.
helped turn Motown into what do you call it? Where they were socially uh, changing the world, you know, not just
Mhm.
singing about being loved, but singing about Papa was a Rolling Stone,
Yeah.
and Love Child, and all
All
the
the
great.
good ones. Yeah, man. I was seeing that. I just saw that about you. I had no idea that you were instrumental in the foundation of Motown, and well, you're just
I
hitting
I
all the
even had
heights.
I even had well, actually, Stevie Wonder became a big fan of our records.
Mm.
He's blind, and I did a Blind Melon Children bit on the record, and Stevie loved it, and we had the best time with Stevie. But Stevie and Barry came to a Cheech and Chong concert. Stevie said, you know, I want to see Cheech and Chong, and because Barry and I had a little friendship thing going, you know, because Barry was the one that helped me get to LA. You know, I got fired from Motown because the road manager didn't know what a green card was. You know, he thought I was just missing the gig for no reason, but I needed a green card, and I got fired when I got it. And Motown, you know, they spent a few bucks to get that green card,
Yeah.
but Barry understood that I was on to bigger things, and he respected that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that was the last thing, you know, he said to me. I respect that. I love Barry.
Were you at Woodstock?
No,
No.
I was, you know, when Woodstock happened, I was driving from Detroit to LA, and
Oh, okay.
when I got to LA, I met this one place where we ended up renting uh, for $80 a month on the beach. Uh, this group of hippies greeted us, knocked on the window, and went out to the window, and there was a hand with a joint holding a big marijuana joint up. And it was like, welcome to Venice. And so I took the joint, smoked it, I looked to hand it back, and it was gone. And then the next day he come up, he said, did you enjoy that? Yeah. He said, well, come on, we're going to a rock, you know, we're going to New York. We're on our way to New York. There's a big festival going on there. Everybody's going. So Come on. And we'd just driven from Detroit, you know.
Yeah.
And I had I did not want to go on the road. I wanted to be in California.
Yeah.
And so we missed Woodstock,
Oh,
but we were there. We were there.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the days, you know, the age of Aquarius, you know, hair. Hair was the big the play. And, wow. In the committee in San Francisco, the improvisational groups, Second City in
Haight Ashbury.
Chicago. Oh man,
Mm.
that was cool. But you know, I never really. When I did drugs, it was for music. You
Mhm.
know, it was only for music, you know, to play or to listen, or you know, and food. You know, play, listen. But it was always music. There was never a time when music did not play a big role in my life, because you're always learning the latest, you know, whatever. Oh, yeah, I like that. You know, that blah, 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 you know, that tune, this tune. Yeah.
Mhm.
The thing about Motown was Bobby Taylor that when we hooked up with Bobby Taylor was not only a great singer, but he was a great teacher.
Mhm.
And the way he would teach harmonies to anybody that played in the band, you know, he needed some vocal background, and you couldn't get out of it by saying, you know, I'm not a singer. I mean, yeah, right, motherfucker. Now hit this note. You know, Bobby was funny because as a guitar player, I'm like a hired hand. You know,
Mhm.
I can play rhythm guitar. In fact, that's really is what I did the best. And because I never had a lead guitar mentality,
Mhm.
you know, I was always like, you know, like when I was a kid, you know, hanging out with a big guy and doing what, you know, doing whatever I was told to do, as opposed to being the innovator. You know, I was never the innovator. I was always the collaborator.
Okay. Okay. I'm a musician myself. I can relate, but
What do you play?
these days I mainly play the synthesizer, but I also play guitar and drums and bass.
Oh, you grew up with the keyboards?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so you learned the music. You learned how to read.
Yeah, but I don't play, I don't sight read. I can transcribe, but I can't just
Yeah,
like
no,
click
that's
in and
another
take
part
off.
of your brain that you'd want to use. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's those people. I actually feel sorry for them. You know, because you know, with perfect pitch, you know, those guys, they
Mhm.
can hear a song and they can give it back to you right away.
Yeah.
No, yeah, yeah, and it's a blessing to be who you are. You know, to know who you are, because then you can. There's no end of how high you can climb. You know,
Yeah.
and that's what was me. Nothing held me back. You know, like, you know, I never owned a guitar until I started playing rhythm and blues.
Really.
I would just borrow whatever, you know, the singer's guitar. The singers always had good guitars, you know,
Mhm. Yeah.
and they couldn't play them, but they could play.
Mhm.
I would borrow one of their guitars, and a lot of times it was because you didn't want to take them on the bus, you know, or carry it around with you. You know, you got a guitar waiting for you. Well, that's much better. Yeah, that was my musical thing. Yeah, and same as a club owner, you know, like I ended up being a club owner, but not really. My brother, I had to enlist the help of my brother, who was I taught him to play bass because we
Mhm.
needed a car, and my bass playing brother, he had a car, and we never had a bass player. So oh, you're the bass player, and I used to have to take his put his fingers on the right notes.
Uh,
And then when we had a reunion, this like 50 years later, we're on stage, and it's the first time he'd played in 50 years, and I had to put his fingers on the notes. And the bass player that there was another singer that used to hang out with us, and so I told him, I learned how to play bass, man. In fact, I give my brother's bass because he wasn't using it, and so so Wes became a bass player. And Wes was on stage when I was showing my brother, putting my brother's fingers on the right notes, and he couldn't believe it. 50 years later, and you're still. But that's kind of the story of music, because if you get a bass player that has great knowledge, you're not going to keep him very long.
no. Oh, no. I remember our first bass player in high school. I won't say his name, but it was our very first jam session. And we were just so proud to be making some noise. And we managed to get a guy with a bass, which was unheard of back then. Nobody had, plenty of people had guitars. Nobody had a bass. So he fit the bill. He had a bass, and that was it. He didn't know what to do with it, whatnot.
But he still had one.
He still had it.
And you get it tuned, and you hit the right notes, and it sounds good.
Well, we couldn't figure out how to tune a bass. We didn't understand the whole concept. 4 strings instead of 6. Yeah, it's EAGD. Now we know. But at the time we were like, what the where do we start? So you can hear it in the background, just some guy just kind of tinkering and playing musical notes, but not really getting anywhere near where he's supposed to be.
Yeah, well, that's how you learn. The first gig, we're playing rock and roll, and our first band was really a show band because the singer was a running back for a football team, and so he was very athletic. He could do all sorts of athletic things, and which he did because he never had that good of a voice. But he had that personality. He had a lead singer's personality, and so he was great, good showman. And then everybody else in the band were like first timers, and right up to the point we never counted to tune in. We had to learn that later. We just look at each other. You ready? Okay, boom. We'd start playing. We never knew how to go 1, 2, 3, 4 until we ended up with, I think, someone, and then we got a gig out at a theme park in Calgary, and we're taking a gig away from a band, the old Glenn Miller kind of swing band. Now they were all great musicians, playing in army bands and played everywhere there was music you were playing. And we come along with our rock and roll band, and we blew them off the stage, literally. And so then the musicians union guy comes out. He says, "You guys have to join the union." And we said, "Why?" "Well, so you can play." "Well, we can play, but you have to be in the union." "Why?" "So you can play here." "Well, we can play here. What's stopping us? Why do we have to join the union?" And well, that guy couldn't answer it because it was a good question. Why do we need to join the union? The guy's going to pay us. There's no problem there, And so it was an impasse until the owner of the club says, "Look, I'll pay the dues. Never mind." And so he paid our dues, got us all in the musicians union. We would still be arguing about it.
I can see it. Less of an argument and more of a just not meeting of the minds. I don't why.
Yeah, it's just like, tell me why I need to be in a union, and he couldn't do it. It wasn't argumentative or nothing. Just that. Well, the thing is, when you grow up poor, there's no such thing as spare change.
Exactly.
you're accounting for every penny in your pocket. And then, if you need something, who you can ask. There's like I had an aunt, Irene, that had married a war hero, and she didn't know until he died. And then when he died, he left his war hero checks came to my aunt. And so my aunt was like, every month she'd get a nice nice big fat check. And so my dad said, "Oh, she better live with us. We got to take care of Aunt Irene." And so Aunt Irene bought my guitar for me, bought my amp for me, because I couldn't afford it. Yeah. Back in the day, you have money. It was to get you to the next time when you're going to get more money. Yeah. And if there was a long period in time there, you just had to suck it up or try to, get empty beer bottles or something,
Mhm. Yeah, we're back at that stage again in a lot of ways.
What's that again?
I said, we're back at that stage again in a lot of ways, having to come up with side hustles to keep the flow rolling. I know
yeah. Yeah, that never stops. That's what life is all about. We're here. We're here to learn. That's what I come up with a great epiphany about our life. How simple. How when you take it right down to the simplest form, we are. The thing that used to bother me all the time, when people would talk about the Big Bang. Life began when we had the Big Bang. But my question was, well, what was going on before the Big Bang? What caused the Big Bang? Would it just come out of nowhere and the Big Bang and all of a sudden here we are? No. Yeah. And then I saw that Hubble, not the Hubble space, but the new
the James Webb.
Yeah, the giant telescope. Yeah. And then they showed the creation of a Big Bang. They showed and I said, I get it. You see, yeah, the Big Bang, but the Big Bang takes place in the universe that has always been here, the eternal universe. And so now I understand, that our evolution as a species, it started with the Big Bang. But there's always, the universe has always been here in one form or another. Yeah. But there's two. You see, in order to have in the physical world, you have to have the opposite of whatever you're dealing with. And the only thing that isn't an opposite is God. God is the only, the beginning, the middle, and the end. That's where it starts, that's where it stops. And it's never started, it's never stopped. That's another mind thing. And so what it is it's evolution. And we keep learning. The more we learn, the more we see we have to learn. Yeah. And it never stops. And so you're evolving up. And that's why you can love everybody. And you can have no hard feelings against anybody. Because everything is just evolving. Yeah. And if something gets uncomfortable for a while, that's part of the evolution. Whatever it is, birth, for instance, can be very uncomfortable. Just being born can create all sorts of problems and pain and feelings and so on. But what you're seeing with a birth, like the Big Bang, is you see something coming out of nothing and becoming something. And so then when you look at it in a very simple way, you see that the universe that we live in has everything. It has more violence than you can even imagine. When you look out into the stars, you see the little twinkle, twinkle, twinkle little star. Well, what you're really seeing is untold amounts of hydrogen and nuclear explosions going off simultaneously every minute, creating such violent explosions that the light can be seen 1,000, many light years away from where that explosion is really happening. And then when you look in the sky, all you see is a mass of explosions, all the stars and the planets and the galaxies and all that. It's all about physical explosions, chemical explosions going off and changing everything. And so there's such amount of physical violence in the known universe. Okay, what's the opposite of everything? Nothing. Now you look at nothing. Now you're looking at the spiritual universe. Because the spiritual universe, and that's why we are immortal creatures, because we've always been here, because we're only really the size of an electron, which is even smaller than the smallest thing. You see, that's why the spirit world, when you go to heaven, that's why they show people in heaven on a cloud with a harp. Because there's nothing there. There's nothing in heaven. There's no need, want, desire, nothing except love. Except we're there. We're a piece of electron energy waiting to be utilized again. Because nothing disappears. When the electricity in our computers, it's a constant flow. When you turn it off, it doesn't disappear. It stops. But then when you're ready for it again, you turn it on. Boom. And what happens when you turn it on? You're creating the positive against the negative, which creates energy. And so you always have a positive negative in the physical world. Where you don't have that in the spiritual world. The spiritual world is the opposite, which is really nothing but love. And when you realize that we're here to learn, and so this is why you can definitely love your neighbor, because no matter who your neighbor is, your neighbor could be Hitler. It could be the worst, Genghis Khan. It could be the worst killer on the planet. But what all he's doing is fulfilling his learning time on in the physical world. Wow. Which when you think in terms of immortality, all the souls that were slaughtered in the Holocaust, for instance, they just transitioned. They just went from that form back to the spiritual form, and then they come back into the physical form again to learn another lesson. And it goes on and on and on and on. And we keep evolving. And some of the holy book says we evolve until we become God. Now that's something to look forward to.
That'll be a good day.
Because eventually we our evolution takes us. There's no end to it. And you know what? And you know the other thing I realized when people started talking about the lack, like a lot of the Trumpies, for instance, they don't want an immigration policy. They don't want those immigrants coming in and taking away the jobs from the white people, or, they don't want those immigrants coming, we don't have room. We don't have that.
Right.
It's infinite. There's nothing but room for everybody and everything.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah. So when and it's an epiphany, that something that came to me, because every once in a while I'll do these podcasts, or no, not a podcast. We go for dinner now. And I'm laughing at my friends because I got a couple of friends, they're really dear, nice, but they're not as interested in the spiritual world as I am, In fact, they're kind of masters at small talk.
Okay.
You know, like, hey,
Yeah.
how's it going? What's up? What's going on? You see the latest da da da, blah, blah, you know what I mean? Just small
Yeah.
talk. Okay, you know, oh, where you guys going on vacation this year? You know, just well, with me, every once in a while they'll ask something, you know, and I'll go into a whole, whole fucking, a whole fucking thing that I can see them getting uncomfortable, you know, and trying to looking for an escape. You know, why did I ask the guy, what have you been up to lately? You know.
Well, that's the premise of this show, Tommy, is spirituality and metaphysics.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, okay. Because you've hit on all the big topics, man. I couldn't have had a better agenda.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, this is the other thing I learned too, is that when the teacher appears, when the pupil is ready, the teacher appears.
Mm.
And it also, and I think it's too, is when the audience is ready, the comic appears. You know, because that was the thing about being able to do stand-up comedy. You know, when Cheech and I broke up, I mulled around. I tried to make a movie, and then I realized, no, I'm not a movie maker for sure. You know, I'm too much of a family man, you know, to really, because you got to sacrifice family, you know, if you're going to get into that movie world, you know, all the way. And you know, and what I wanted to do is what I did too. I put my family in the movie, you know.
Oh, okay.
And that's how I did that. But now I'm going to go back on the road doing showing excerpts from the movies that I've directed, you know, funny ones, and just talking, doing a Q&A with the audience, you know. I try to do it with Cheech, but Cheech is in a different space. You know? Oh yeah, he hit that different space back in 1981. When he became the Corsican brother, and
Yeah.
he wasn't too thrilled with that role, and that was really the last movie we made together.
Was it really? I was thinking about that movie this weekend.
Yeah. Well, we made Still Smoking, which was a compilation of all our old bits that we never had a chance to, and probably the most woke, is that the word, woke performance. You know, we did all the bits that we can't do nowadays, you know, because we're going to be hurting someone's feelings, you know. Well, it was a great era, man. We had a great time.
Always a great time with you guys.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
My favorite was when you came back to acting again with Leo. That's one of my favorite roles. Yes, I love that role.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a lesson for me, because up until then, I didn't want to do television because I didn't want to be put in a position where they create a character, they own the character, and then whenever they feel like making that character work, they offer you money. And you know, and at first I didn't want to, I wasn't ready to do it. Then I realized, oh, I'm ready. Are you kidding? And so, you know what I'd do? I wouldn't just sit in the dressing room because I had a small part. I would go to the set and watch David Trainer direct kids, because I realized, you know, after a while, I said, oh, this is school. Kids are in school. They're learning. They're learning the craft, and I want to learn it too. You know, because I never made it to college, and so I'm sitting in the audience watching David put the sitcom together, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about acting. I learned a lot about directing. I know I learned a tremendous amount. And I learned a lot about using the right people for the right job,
Mhm.
you know. That's so important. I always used to think, oh, anybody can act, they just need a shot at it. But no, no, no. It's a very, no, a lot of people can be in the movie business, but you got to pick where you best fit, you
Yeah.
know. And, I always realized, if you're going to be a star, there's nothing can stop you. It's a drive. You got it. You'll do what you have to do, and that's with practically anything, if you put your mind to it. And the thing is, if you're honest about it, that's why the worst thing you can do is anything just for the money.
Mhm.
That you're not learning anything, and all you're really doing is like winning the lottery. That's why the I Ching always considers winning the lottery a misfortune, because to me it's like giving someone that has no experience at all with woodworking or gardening at all, giving them a chainsaw. There you go.
But yeah, you mentioned the I Ching. I consult the I Ching regularly. I have for some time. I've studied a martial art called Chong.
Oh
It's,
yeah.
yeah, it's based on the movements or the based on the 64 trigrams of the I
Yeah,
Ching.
great.
Yeah. And I saw that you wrote a book called the I Chong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to check that out. Is it?
Oh, you haven't checked it out?
No, I just saw it today.
Yeah, it's memoirs of me in prison, and what I did when I was in prison. It was like a spiritual retreat, because I'd
That's
been involved in the I Ching. I was in the Goldsmith books and everything. And so when I got and my brother-in-law, Shelby's brother, he sent me the I Ching.
Mhm.
So the first day I got the book, I was figuring out how to do it, and one of the inmates, he was in the dormitory at the time. He saw me doing it. He said, "What you got there?" I said, "The I Ching." He says, "Oh, so how does it work?" And I said, "Well, let me do your, I'll do your reading." And so what I did, he threw the coins, and then I did the whole hexagram thing, and then I found his reading, so I just handed it to him. I said, "Here, read it. See what you think."
Yeah.
Well, he read it, and then he handed me the book, and then he went back to his bunk and sat up on his bunk, really quiet, really, really quiet. And so I knew what page it was, so I read his thing, and it was showed you how the power of the I Ching, because Mike was his name. It was about a couple of months into this tragedy. His wife and daughter were coming out to see him in jail, and they got killed in a car accident on the way out there. And now he's in jail, and they died because of him, and so the I Ching brought up you had just suffered a great loss,
Mhm.
and they nailed it right away, like spooky. And so then I did my I Ching reading. It cracked me up, man. Yes. First thing it says, you are in jail for a reason. That was the first thing it said. It said, prisons are a place where you go to change your behavior. Think about that. Think about that, man. It's not to punish you. It's to change your behavior. Oh, it was so cool. And I said, right. And then it went on, that, but you're going to do fine, and da da da. And I did. Well, because see, when you pick up the I Ching right away, you've evolved to that level. Okay.
Yeah.
And so all your readings will come from that thing. You're smart enough to pick me up. Therefore, I can tell you this and that and everything else. Yeah. Oh man, and then I used to give a lot of readings to the inmates,
Mhm.
They would come in, they want to know what's going on, and I'd give them a reading.
Yeah.
But I never really eavesdropped on their readings. I'd give
Sure.
it to them, let them read it, let them figure it
Yeah.
out.
That's the best way to do it. Same way with astrology. I can read charts and stuff like that, but I don't do it for people just because it's too personal, you know?
Yeah, yeah, you can, yeah, that's what I found out with the I Ching, I said, whoa, that is kind of
Mhm.
intrusive, in there.
Mhm. Tell me, I have enjoyed our time, my friend.
We always have a good time, don't we?
Yes, every time.
Well, anytime you let me run up the most about the spiritual world. See, that's the other thing I learned too. I'm learning.
Mhm.
It's so hard not to want to spread the good news, you
Mhm.
know, and that's why the Baptist churches, they're always singing about the good news. There's
Yeah.
they're singing that. And I love that too. My first wife, mother, she lived to be 100 years old. She
Mm.
lived to be 100. And told me. And I went to see her, right? And she she could barely see, barely hear, but she saw me. Oh, Tommy, you come to see your old old Gotchi. Oh, Tommy. And her son was there, Bernie, and she said, Bernie, you want to go home, don't you, Bernie? Bernie, you don't want to, she would just torture the shit out of her sons, with guilt and everything else. And because I was a movie star, she was bragging to all her people in the home, this is Tommy, he's in the movies, and the one granddaughter that we had, Robbie,
Mhm.
she
Mhm.
ended up being a Parisian runway model, and so
Wow.
a lot of pictures of her. She had that. Oh God, she was great. But the reason she lived to be so long is that God, she never, every waking day, she would sing about Jesus.
Mhm.
Just sing a song. Just she'd be humming a little song in her head, spiritual song in her head. And she kept that song with her, and she wouldn't have been. She's still alive. It was like, oh, okay, got you. Come on. There's more. Let's go to church here, because everybody was dying on her, but she made 100, man. That was so great. That was.
You made 100. That's beautiful. That's
Oh, and when she died, the she had raised at least two other families because she was a housekeeper as well as, they owned a boarding house, and they owned the now the dad, he owned his own gravel truck. He bought a gravel truck, and then he would drive that. It was a owner, and they had a comfortable amount of Christian cash,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
for living the real the pure life.
Mhm.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
they were so great. And now there's only Maxine, my ex-wife. She's the only one left. Her brother. Oh, by the way, her brother was Floyd, was the drummer of the Three Dog Night. Remember that group?
Of course I do.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, Floyd was the drummer. He was a black drummer in a white group. Not only a white group, but a white Southern racist group.
Jeremiah was a bullfrog.
Yeah. And they, at the end of the career, they started bringing up the fact that Floyd was black, and less than. But Floyd was he got the gig on a audition. You know, they auditioned everybody, and Floyd was the one that had the feel, and he did that feel that he brought to the thing. Again, think about it, man. That was God induced. His musical talent was coming out of that church every day, every week for years. You know, and you get that soul music in there, man, and that music from God, about God.
Yeah, it's potent stuff. I've been to quite a few churches.
Yeah,
quite a few.
Yeah,
all kinds of colors, different churches. And,
oh yeah, but it's a music. It's a music.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
And it's spiritually. When you go spiritual like that, whoa, the power is enormous. It's incredible. So
I'll
good.
send you a copy of my album. Maybe you tell me what you think.
Oh, for sure. You got my address and everything?
I've got your producers.
Oh, JP?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, he'll get it to me.
I'll send it to him. Well, I want to thank you, Tommy, for helping me with a bucket list item.
Oh, good, man. Well, anytime, bro. I love the show.
I'll send you the links, let you know.
Okay.
Hope you have a marvelous year.
Yeah, you too, man. I want to hear your album for sure.
Okay, man. Trust me, I'll get it to you.
Okay.
All right, man.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care, bro.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.